My name is Nikki Barnett. I'm a senior career consultant for alumni. We're so excited that you're here today. We're thrilled to be in this location. It's a really nice location. This is one of our first events in New York City, so that's the other exciting thing as well. This particular event is part of a larger series with Alumni Career Services, a webinar workshop series. So this is also exciting because of that as well. This particular format that we have here today and the structure of this particular program is different than we usually have. When we have workshops and webinars, we usually do kind of like a structured type of workshop where we have kind of techniques and ways to do things. This is a way of us being able to invite alumni and friends to be able to engage in kind of the understanding of how different industries are as it relates to job search strategies. Our goals for this program, again, is to be able to give you really a broad range understanding of different industries and different strategies. We want you to walk away with understanding kind of like, how do you structure things, how do you utilize strategies, implement them in a positive way, and ultimately we want to make sure that you're getting advice, career advice. Doesn't matter what level, whether you're recent alum or mid-level or experienced, you're still going to get something from this program. And then really lastly, one of our goals for this program is we really want to make sure that you're walking away with making connections. That's something that we know is going to happen. I've been happy and I had the pleasure of working with Janet Massini from Alumni Association. This is a joint collaboration between our office and the Career Center and the Alumni Association. The format today is, this is our first part. We're going to start with the employer panel. In a minute, we're going to have them introduce themselves. And then the second part of our program today is networking, and also we're going to have some time for quick resume review and quick questions as well. So we're going to be over here, I believe, after the formal panel that we have. One thing I want to bring to your attention is that I believe Matthew Colson, Executive Director of Alumni Association, kind of came around and gave you this little sheet about social media. We want to make sure that we are communicating through social media and keeping this event live. So we have certain handles for Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So if you want to go ahead and go on your phones and kind of check in, go ahead and do that. Feel free to do that. All right. So let me move forward. Before we get started with our panel for this evening, I wanted to talk really quick about Alumni Career Services. So we launched officially the Alumni Career Services in fall 2013, which we are so very excited about. Before that, the Career Center, we never turned alumni away, but this was something where we were unable to provide lifetime career counseling services for alumni. We are proud and happy to be able to do that now. This is the first time that we can do that with the assistance from the Advancement Office and the Alumni Association. Really, this is a joint collaboration between all of these offices. So a special thank really goes to Mariana Savoca, Director of the Career Center, Matt Colson, Executive Director for Alumni Association, of course, Dexter Bailey, VP for Advancement, for the monetary support and the financial support for this particular position. So we address all stages of career management, from recent alumni to experienced alumni, someone who's maybe towards retirement and thinking about their second act. So that's really a nice thing, unlimited services. And we also address things like professional development topics as well. We also offer, we know that sometimes when you can't get in for an appointment, we have launched a website which you can access through, actually on your handout you'll see our website on the front page, where you can access information 24/7, online career resources where you'll be able to see things, everything from career assessment to letter writing to interviewing skills, anything you really want to see. So that's something that's there for you as well 24/7. And lastly, of course, like I mentioned at the beginning, we have a webinar workshop series. This event is part of that. We also have an archive of all of our past webinars. So this is another thing where if you're unable to go to an event, you'll be able to see on our website an archive listing of webinars that have happened this past year since we started in fall 2013. So that's another great feature as well. And you'll see that there's just a print screen of our website. If you have not been to it yet, that's what it looks like, and you'll know you're in the right place. All right, so now we're going to go to our main event. We are going to start with brief career histories of the panelists that are here with us this evening. The first piece, I think, is kind of more of career history, but I really want the panelists also to answer the question of what are some job search strategies that worked for them personally before we get into the other questions that we have for this evening. So we're going to start with Errol right over here, and then we're going to work our way.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
Good.
It's good to be with you. I'm sorry I was late. Can folks hear me, or do I need this? Maybe I do need this. Is it on? That's a good question. Here we go. Hi. My name is Errol Cockfield. I'm a 94 graduate of Stony Brook, English major. I think I'm in my third career act now. I first did journalism, 3 major newspapers. Then I worked in government for 2 governors, Elliott Spitzer. I was actually press secretary when the Hoover thing happens. That was fun. But it was also a good training ground. I now work for a large full-scale PR firm called Edelman, and I do crisis management. A lot of people say, is that like Olivia Pope? And I joke that I'm Oliver Pope. Some people, watch crises unfold. I actually live crises every day, advising companies on how to deal with media issues. It's a lot of fun. In terms of job search strategies, I think you need to live job search every day in every job you're in. I've actually never applied for a job formally. My first thing out of school was like an internship program at the LA Times. It was like somewhere between an internship and a trainee program. And my English journalism professor at Stony Brook gave me the application for the program. And every job I've had, I networked extensively, and that led from one recruiter reaching out to me to another. So like when I was in journalism, someone in Elliott Spitzer's office reached out to me and said, would you consider a communications role? And then I was at a cocktail party and I met someone at Edelman, and that led to me being at Edelman. So I think networking has to be a lifestyle. It is not a job or a chore. It is something that you have to work into your schedule and have a little bit of fun with. And I even consider coming here networking because one of you people might give me a job one day when I'm in my 5th act. So that's me.
Great. Thank you.
Tamara? Hi, I'm Tamara Danglad. I actually started in human resources in 2002 with a company called Family Residences and Essential Enterprises. I actually started as a direct care counselor there, and then I worked my way up into human resources. I didn't have the experience, but I took a chance. I saw the posting, I jumped on it, and they loved me. So that's actually how I started in human resources. And I stayed in that position for about 10 years, and I kind of outgrew it. I guess it kind of outgrew me also, so it was time for me to make moves. So I went on to St. Mary's Hospital for Children. And one thing I did, after being somewhere for 10 years, you're taking a gamble as to say, okay, the economy isn't the greatest, but I need to do something different with my life. So I went to St. Mary's Hospital for Children, which I loved for 2 years, and then I was laid off. So reality check set in, and one of the things I decided to do was to go back to school for my master's in human resources. And I also utilized temp agencies to help me find another job, because being in school and just doing day-to-day things, I wanted somebody to kind of work for me while I was working for myself as well. So I utilized the temp agency, which is how I became the HR journalist at Sunrise Medical Laboratories. And I started off as a temp there. But when I walked in the door and I met with the HR director, I told her, you're not going to want anyone else for this position, it's my position. And a month later, it was my position. So after that, I was actually promoted to an HR manager, which is what I'm doing now. So as far as looking for positions and how to go about doing so, it's always a good idea to keep your options open, network, utilize temp agencies, look at the job boards, but just be mindful of the job boards that you're looking at. Be mindful of the dates that the jobs were posted. If something was posted 2 months ago, maybe call the company first to make sure that it's still available. And again, just networking and just taking all the career advice that you can and going with it. Even if it's from someone who's not in your field, you never know. It can kind of open up other doors. So that's me in a nutshell.
What's the name? My name is Rosemary Dalo, and I currently am the Chief Program Officer for a mid-sized nonprofit. Free is very familiar to me. We work very closely with them. I don't want to reiterate, but I will, both of what Errol and Tamara said. Definitely, it is a lifestyle in terms of networking. I started out as a lowly case manager when deinstitutionalization, a word that's familiar to me, maybe not to you, they closed down Pilgrim State and Kings Park hospitals and threw people out to the community. So I was supposed to help transition persons with serious mental illness going into the community after they had been institutionalized for 20, 30 years. I loved it. It was great. Did not pay a lot, but it was a passion of mine. The words after that, I became a drug counselor, which was another passion of mine, which is with counseling. And then I went back to Stony Brook and graduated with my master's degree in 1998. Every single job I have gotten because someone has asked me. You know, they see me at a meeting, could be, I work now in housing, and we do something called continuum of care with HUD. And it's like 30 or 40 people. So, you know, I do know what I'm talking about, so I may bring something to the meeting. Someone afterwards will come up to me and say, hey, I have a position available to you. Always be confident. Even if you really don't know what you're talking about, make a checklist and say, I'm going to go find out about that. But as you're talking, don't ever lie, be honest, be authentic, be genuine. But, you know, if someone's talking about something that you know a little bit about, engage in that conversation. You never know where it's going to lead. Be a lifelong learner. I think it's great that the Illinois Association has opened up their career doors for people that graduated like myself, you know, a few years ago. Always grow. What I hear from Tamara is that, you know, she got into a position after 10 years, a little bored. What else can I do? And sometimes in our field, like in social work, you may have to leave your agency, which is what I've had to do. And just keep the doors open, always, with everybody, and make connections. You never know. I mean, I've been in a deli talking to the guy behind the counter, and he'll mention something, and I'm usually the connector, which is a big job, a big role in my life. And I'm listening, and he'll tell me about his kid, or, you know, who wants to go to graduate school, but they don't really know, and this and that. And I'll start talking about being a social worker. And the next time I go to get my coffee, he'll ask me for my card. And all of a sudden I have this young person calling me up, and the next thing I know, she's asking for a reference letter, which is great. You know, I don't know where that good karma will come in down the road. I don't care. But be a giving person, and it does come back to you.
Oh,
Good.
yeah. Is this, yeah, hi.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good, good. My name's Adam Sherman, and forgive the lime green sweater and the cheesy smile. Yeah, so I gotta swap out that picture. It's also my LinkedIn photo. So with New York Life, insurance company, about 8 years. I started off as a tuxedo and limousine driver way back when. Yeah, I've had some odd jobs and been unemployed 3 times. So if you guys are out of work or transitioning, I can feel your pain. So I got a toehold in my first, I think, real good job through my dad at the New York Daily News, and got a nice break there. And from that point on, probably almost 20 years ago, it's been incumbent upon me to build the relationships. It's relationship building, and you guys, right, all you, I think, in the room right now are go-getters, right? You're here tonight, you're hungry, you're active, you want to be proactive. What's your go-giver strategy? How do you give, it's the other side, how do you give back? And to what everyone was saying, by doing so, you become your own center of influence, your own referral source, and you can empower yourself. And to what, I forgot, Rosemary, sorry. As what Rosemary was saying, how many of you, quick show of hands, are on social media? Social media, people share stuff, right? Information, right? So if you can't get to that recruiter, right, who's posting that job, look that recruiter up on LinkedIn. See if there's a mutual connection. Reach out to her directly. Be proactive, be hungry, and you'll start to gain traction. So certainly wish you well in your career pursuits, whatever you're doing, and look forward to the next phases of the panel.
Great.
Yep.
I think the biggest thing that we can get from this portion of the panel is that no matter what industry, what occupation, they're saying the same type of things. They're saying that connections, making relationships, not only doing that, because you hear the words networking a lot, it's important to network, right? But what I also heard them say were things like it's important to be genuine, right? Be curious, learn, and act, and do, and not just say, okay, I'm at an event, and that's okay, and that's all I'm going to do, but going that next step. And I think that that's kind of across the board what I'm hearing with the panel. So for the next question we have, I should say that these questions were developed based on my experiences with coaching and counseling. So a majority of my job spent meeting with clients day in, day out, and so there are constant themes that come up. And one theme that constantly will come up is this thought of the job search materials. And so there are certain things that I hear over and over and over again, and it doesn't necessarily matter what industry someone's in or what occupation someone's in, it's the same type of thing. And so some assumptions that I'll hear are, one being, the resume will get me the job. That alone will get me the job. If they don't speak it, they think it. The next is one version is enough. I don't need to change. I can just post one, and that someone will take advantage of me, hopefully give me an interview or get me the job. And that no cover letter is needed. That's another thing that whenever I bring up cover letter, it's that look on their face, like I really have to write a cover letter. Yes. So what do we know? What are the facts? We know that a resume gets you the interview, doesn't necessarily get you the job. Right? So really understanding that writing your skills is one component and what the skills you have that the employer is looking for, but speaking it is another, right? The other is that multiple versions are needed and required. So a lot of thought going into the materials that are kind of branding you and your skills that you bring to the table. And lastly, what we know, right, is that 90% of employers want a cover letter. We know that. But I'm curious, I want to hear from the panel, I want to know what their thoughts are and understand a little bit more what they see in industry. So the question for the panel related to the job search materials is, from your role as a hiring manager or an HR professional, what makes the candidate's resume or cover letter stand out for you?
Yeah, I'll tackle that one. And again, I want to first mention that I think this idea of lifestyle and networking is important because what it does is it allows you to become fluent in talking about yourself professionally. So when you go into an interview, it's not like this massively intimidating thing because you do it all the time, right? So you should do that. You should go to conferences. You should go places where no one you know is there, so that you can start to challenge yourself to talk about yourself professionally and walk up to people you don't know and just say, hi, what do you do, right? That's number one. The resume, I think, resume is critical. Too many people write their resume like it's a job description, right, instead of telling a story about yourself. So whenever I update my resume, I look to tell a story with each position. So I always give the example of, if you're a secretary, right, and you're applying for a job, you can say, I answered phones, I did filing. I know that because I know if I'm hiring a secretary, I know a secretary answers phones. But if you tell me you organized a conference of 250 people for the last president of a company that you work for, and it was the biggest event that was ever organized, that tells me that you're distinguishing yourself as a leader. So make every job section of your resume sing and tell a story, and throw away the things like that are just random job duty stuff. Don't even mention it because I already know it if I'm hiring you for that job, right? And it's a waste of real estate. Every resume should really be tailored to the job, and every cover letter I think should be tailored as well, because I think people use stock cover letters and you can read it and you can see that it's stale. So Those are a few tips.
Thank you. One thing I also wanted to mention, just to piggyback off of Errol, just make sure that you change your objective on the resume. If you are applying for a director of sales position, don't have it say customer service, because that to me that means that you don't pay attention to detail in your own life. So how do I know you're going to do it for the position that I'm looking to hire for? Also, if there's anything that would differentiate you from anyone else, put it on your resume. So coming to things like this, going to seminars, you can include that on your resume. One of the things that I always like to look for is something like if I am looking for a director of sales, someone who puts in the amount of money they generated for the company rather than somebody who says I did sales. It's definitely a big difference. So always try to make yourself different from the next person, because there are 5,000 other people looking for the same job that you guys are looking for. So, and also with the cover letter, just make sure you update it to relate to the position that you're applying for as well. So just try to keep it consistent.
I think you guys get a pretty good sense of what we look for in resumes and cover letters, and I would agree with that. From a social work point of view, what do you bring to an agency? So similar to sales, I may have someone that walks in the door who says, developed a group program, developed a parenting program, whether as an intern or in my previous job, and was able to put together 8 weeks of training modules for low-income parents. That's huge. It's something that we need, we use, we want all the time. So even though my agency does not necessarily focus on parents, parenting groups, it's something that's in the back of my head that if I ever want to pull that skill out of somebody, I can call you up if I hire you. Okay? So that's going to make you stand out. What I took the question as, I want to go a little more into the interview process in very general words to this. Your willingness to learn, that's what I look for. Listen, an MSW to me is, I don't want to say it's an MSW to me, but we all go through the same type of schooling, we all get the same type of training. But if someone walks in my door, I don't care if you just graduated, which tells me you don't have any experience, and that's okay. If your style, your demeanor, your answering the questions, everything about you is showing me I want to learn. I don't know what you're going to teach me, but I'm going to learn it. We love that in my agency. Having a passion for your profession, I think that would be across the board as well. You know, someone who's happy at their job is going to be a very happy employee. It's going to spread goodwill. It's going to make a nice workplace. Everyone's going to want to be there. Your clients are going to feel it. It's just going to be a wonderful experience, and you leave at the end of the day like, I've done something, I've committed myself to something, I feel good about it. Me as a manager feels good about it, your clients feel good about it. Have passion. Have an attitude of cooperation, please. If I ask you to take out the garbage, it's not because I'm demeaning you, it's really because we need someone to take out the garbage right now. Is that okay? Please don't tell me it's not in my job description, because what I do is that I say, fine, and I go in front of you and grab that garbage bag and put it out to the dumpster. You never want your boss to do that. It does not look good. Be flexible, be sincere, have integrity, and very good communication skills in your interview. If you're nervous, it's okay. The people interviewing you, we recognize you're nervous. You should be nervous. You're on the spot. But also be yourself. And that's the way I just wanted to bring it to the next level. If you have more
Thank you.
cover-ups and stuff.
Hi. So building on what Errol said and what Rosemary, I get your name this time.
I said it on purpose.
Yeah, no, it's intentional. So Errol talked about like networking, comfort level, and I frame it as the art of conversation, being more and more comfortable doing a back and forth, and being consistently in that environment to overcome maybe some of those fears in an interview. To what Rosemary's saying, a willingness to learn, but also to listen. Listening is vital, but listening with the intent to kind of understand rather than just respond with something in your mind that's canned, pre-planned. really kind of dial in, be an active listener. Again, this is a great opportunity to really engage and understand your needs. I would say from the financial services industry, New York Life, and I'm not a recruiter. I help the recruiters with their brand on social media, but what I see them pivoting, it's cold source recruiting, Monster, Career Builder, flat resume versus warm source recruiting, referrals. More and more, and that a lot of that comes from social media. So, how do you maybe connect the two? Maybe on the resume. Can you hear me okay? Am I going in? Okay, sorry. On the resume, because I do look at resumes. Is there a story to be told? What Errol was saying. Is there a Twitter handle? Is there a website? Is there a blog? How do I extend the story about me? Because that might be a differentiator in terms of the recruiter looking at the resume and saying, oh, okay, I can go here now and see a little bit more about, what's your name?
Stephanie.
A little more about Stephanie. So it gives me a sense of who she is, and it could be the difference in me bringing you in. So thinking about the cold and the warm from the recruiter's perspective.
Great, thank you. I should say that we are going to take questions towards the end, so if you want to develop in some questions, jot them down. We're going to take them a little bit later. But some things I heard that were consistent here were that you really want to think about your resume as if you're bringing it to life, right? So the idea of it being your skill sets that you're just kind of, what are your duties, your responsibilities that you're listing, versus showing an employer that you're honing a certain skill set that they're looking for in a consistent thread throughout your resume, which is a very different way of writing a resume. The other thing that was mentioned is this idea of results and using measurement and quantitative ways of showing your results that you've yielded over time. So I think that's another really important piece that's been said here. The other thing as well, and interviewing was brought in, and this is the how you're speaking, how confident you are, and the skills that you have. And I think the same thing applies with an interview. What kind of skills are you showing through your responses in your interview? And the last thing was the idea of social media and how has the resume changed over time, and this idea of branding yourself based on the skills that you bring to the table that the employer might be looking for. So I think those are all very, very important things that were mentioned and themes throughout.
Can I add one thing? I'm an English guy and Adams too, but I think the active verbs are important, the verbs you choose to tell that story in your resume. A lot of people say, managed, supervised, completed. Those are very dry words. I think you should push on that. Like, I like stuff like overhauled, revamped, words that have energy behind them. Really look at those words. And you don't want passive, you want, you want accomplished. You want to immediately telegraph right away at the beginning of that sentence what you did, right? And program the thinking around what it is you're getting done.
If I just quickly build on that, that's a great point, excellent point, and I would say that there's a lot of programs out there that recruiters use that search keywords on resumes and LinkedIn profiles. So if you use those active verbs, you might very well bubble up to the top. So it puzzles well. So great point, Errol.
But be real, too. Someone who's I agree with that 1,000%, but also be real. Someone who's just graduating with a bachelor's in English, so they might have some very good vocabulary, very positive vocabulary. Don't sit there and tell me that you're the sole innovator in developing, because we're going to know.
Yeah, it has to reflect where you are in your career when you've done.
It's one thing to enhance a resume, but then there's another thing to fluff it. Don't fluff it and expect us not to know that you're fluffing it. We know. So it's always good to enhance it, but do it in such a way that it makes you look more professional.
The interview, you can tell us more.
Yeah.
You fluff. Well done.
All right, so another topic area that's surfaced over time is the idea of online versus offline strategies. And, so what are some things that, I hear over and over again? And this is kind of common speak. People talk about submitting their resume into the black hole, right? Spending hours upon hours on various different job boards, maybe not tailoring their resume so much, right, or posting their resume on the job board, and then expecting that that's going to get them the interview. And now I know this because I hear this every day, right? So this is something that, it doesn't matter necessarily what occupation you're going for, but this assumption is there. So what do we know? We know that time spent learning about companies, understanding your fit with that company, attending events, and conducting informational interviews, talking to people that are doing the job or working in the company that you want to work in is going to pay off in the end. And that is what is going to get you that interview, right? So my next question that I have is for each of the panelists. From your perspective, or your companies, what do you suggest for online versus offline strategies?
For online, I mean, I think LinkedIn is huge, you know, and I think I found, you know, for myself, like I get targeted on LinkedIn a lot, and I think you have to pay very, very close attention to what your LinkedIn presence looks like, because I think for recruiters, it's become like a top 5 resource in terms of, you know, certain kinds of searching, right? And also advertising around LinkedIn as well. So I think that's critical. I'm less knowledgeable in other areas of the net, but I can certainly speak to away from the net. I think that your point about informational chats is really, really critical. Like, I'm a big believer in the karma point. You know, I mentor a lot of people. I take anyone who calls me or contacts me to learn about what I do for a living. I make sure I call anyone back. I do about, I would say, in a month, I probably have about 4 or 5 of those conversations, because there are a lot of people who helped me when I was at Stony Brook, when I just got out. So I believe it's my, you know, I have a duty to like close that cycle. But if you're trying to get into a company, it's very easy to just call someone and say, I want to talk with you about what you do every day. And that's a way to bring the temperature down without it being the formality of an official interview. And the person is going to take stock of you. They might not think you're ready for their company, but they might actually think you're ready, and those informational chats can actually lead to them forwarding your resume to HR and shepherding that process for you, which gives you the stamp of approval from someone within the organization. So I think that's really, really important.
Something just to think about, always have a user-friendly or a resume-friendly email address, username, LinkedIn profile, Facebook profile, because whether you know it or not, companies are looking. So, you know, even if it's Facebook and your profile is blocked, but your picture is, you know, you drinking 20 drinks, and, you know, companies look at that, and it's something to just be mindful of, especially when you're looking for a career. Also, just keep in mind, you can always visit the company's website before you call them, just to make sure that you're knowledgeable about what they do. I've had people call me telling me, oh, you know, I'm interested in a nursing position, but we don't do nurses. We're a lab. So if you would have checked the website, you would have been, you know, knowledgeable of that. So before you call a company, just make sure that you are aware of what they actually do. And just going to the different websites, going into Career Builder, if you are posting your resume, just realize sometimes it is public, so, you know, just make sure that everything is accurate, make sure there's no misspellings, make sure that it's 100% before you put it out there for everyone to see. We notice everything. I mean, if somebody has a misspelled word, but they have the perfect resume, and then somebody has, you know, no mistakes at all, and their resume may not be as strong, I might go with the one that's not as strong, but, you know, paid attention to detail with everything else. So you never know how recruiters think. You never know. So just be mindful of everything before you put it out there for every employer to see.
Absolutely. You know, you read something 15 times to you, it's correct because your mind adds that word that's not on the paper. We see it for the first time. The first thing we notice is that word's missing. And that's a psychological fact. Please do not have an email of hot baby mama 25.
I've seen it all.
You've seen it. Or I like to knife squirrels or something. I mean, truly. Because, you know, you want to have that with your friends, go right ahead. That's fine. And I'm not making those up, by the way. That's why I remember them. You know, my email has been rdalo forever. My kids make fun of me. I'm like, well, you know, how many Dalos are there in the world? Not many. And, you know, it's professional. It's not saying anything strange. In terms of out networking, yes, the karma, but also I do a lot of informational interviewing as well. Be generous with your time. You know, no matter where you are in your career, if someone's interested in what you do, whatever it might be, if it's something that, and you're talking about jobs in particular, but what are your interests? That's another area that you don't know where it will lead you. I have a son-in-law who is very, I always say if Armageddon comes, I want to be near him because he will know how to live off of twigs and acorns. And I mean that in and out. But that is his passion. He's looking for a job. He also is really, really good with being a mentor. So he's actually looking into something like Outward Bound and taking his passion of being outdoors and being a survivalist and working with young people. And that might lead to a career path that he would never have thought of. You know, and he'll be passionate about it and it will show and you know, that's a very, very good thing. The last point I want to make that would help people looking in the nonprofit world, one of the websites I do want to put out there is called BridgeSpan, BridgeSpan.org. On that website, it has it has examples of excellent resumes. It also has job descriptions. Look at the job. Do not tell me, like you said, that you know, I want to be a nurse. Well, I'm sorry, we're allowed. You know, so look at the job. Attention to detail is actually pretty huge when you're looking for work, and when you are an employee.
I would say to time spent learning about the companies, you have a great, I think, advantage these days as it relates to social media, LinkedIn in particular, to follow companies and comment. Quick show of hands, anyone's following companies on LinkedIn? Have you chimed in and commented? Because know that the companies are looking at those comments, and if you say something of note, of significance, over time, who knows, they might reach out to you. So it's a great way of communicating with a company. Anyone follow companies on Twitter? Again, another great place. I mean, you can go in directly and target those companies that you may want to work for. They may not have a job or an opportunity, but who knows? They may create one. You might send a note to the recruiter or somebody of other influence within the companies, commenting, carefully, gently on a strategy, sending them a gentle note, maybe through a referral, right, through a mutual connection. So great opportunities there. I would also say, as far as offline and online, online and offline, meetup.com. Anyone go to meetups? Great opportunity. Does anyone start any meetups? So again, going back to what Rosemary said about being passionate, having interest, you can cultivate your own group, become your own center of influence, and who knows who you'll meet, who you speak to, what relationships would develop out of it. So I think really great opportunities from going in, zeroing in on what you want and what value you can bring to those companies, and then also those networking opportunities via Meetup.
I just wanted to offer a cautionary word about online. So there's the online, like LinkedIn, but then we are all developing digital profiles and digital signatures. So, you walk into my office and I interview you, and you look great. You got a suit on and you look great. Then I Google you and I see your Instagram account and it's got like 90 crazy selfies of you doing all kinds of stuff, and it programs potentially how I think about you. And a lot of people don't have guardrails around their digital presence, like things are public. I think a lot of young people especially don't pay attention to this because they're in a world of, I'm in high school, now I'm in college, everything is open, everybody can follow me, everybody can do whatever, right? So there are, unless you create those guardrails, people can see that stuff and, you know, they make up their mind about who you are, right? So, like, you know, the only thing I got public, for my Twitter account is public and my Instagram is public, and I post a lot about food and travel, but I do not post selfies really. So you just gotta think about that stuff. And Google yourself every now and again just to see what people are seeing for you, and just, you know, set up appropriate guardrails.
So a theme here, I think, is that hiring managers are really trying to understand how you think, right? So everything from the questions that you ask, whether it's through an informational interview, or maybe how you're kind of responding on social media to the types of comments that you're putting in, or the thoughts that you have. And they use all these different things to be able to see the type of person that you are. And so I think that across the board is what I'm hearing here, even on
Can I
and
add
offline.
one more thing on that?
Yes,
as
go
far as
ahead.
comments? Some of you may be opinionated. If there are things happening in the news and you go to blogs and you comment on them and you put your name, even if you don't put your name, sometimes things can be tracked. You would be shocked at the sophistication of search nowadays. So someone can identify when you commented about something in the news where you said something that was borderline offensive or what have you. So be very, very careful about what you do online.
One last thing I'll say is that we do have a network called the Career Advisors Network, where we match alumni and students with career advisors. And this career advisors, we have about 430 or so that represent various industries. And so the thought here is that if you don't already have a network of support, we'll connect you with someone, we'll match you with somebody, and we'll help you with that process and go through this career research process, not for getting a job, but for learning about the companies, learning about people who are in the field, and getting that subjective knowledge from them. So on our website, we have more information about that, but I definitely wanted to make that note because that was informational interviewing is a big point here. So the next big theme is, of course, networking, and it's been mentioned many times, and I think we want to kind of move beyond, like, what is this idea of networking and how do we become effective with that process? One thing I hear is that, you know, we'll network at times when we need something, when it's not really a good time for it, because that's when you have kind of that anxious feeling like you need something right away, and, you know, you can sniff that from miles away. So you really kind of want to be in the mindset of networking all the time, and there are ways to do it in shifting your mindset. The other thing you hear often is networking is fake and impersonal. Well, you know, these are all examples of the wrong mindset, right? And wrong ways of thinking about networking. So what are some things we know? We know that networking is a mindset. I think Errol already mentioned that, this idea of being curious about other people, really kind of doing it all the time, and not really thinking about doing it when you need something. It's about learning about other people, right? And it's about the quality of the relationships you have with them, not the quantity of the contacts that you have, which is a huge, huge component of networking. So it's nurturing and maintaining connections with people, and not just having a list of people and saying, that's my network, but actually knowing what's going on with them as a give and take. So the question I have related to networking is for the panel. What is one, I guess, the best piece of advice you got about building your network and nurturing your network during the time that you've been in your career?
We'll mix it up and start with Adam this time.
Yeah.
Put him on the spot.
Thanks, thank you, Earl. I'm sorry.
I gotta get my answer together.
What is the best piece of advice you received about net? I don't know if I received the best piece of advice, but what I would say is just engage, authentically in conversation and think about the give and not think about you. Maybe it's a good time to. I do a lot of training, development, webinars, and on-site visits with a lot of the recruiters and agents across geography. And I came up with this learning mnemonic, and it transcends social media. And this is how if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you'll see it. It's a little cheesy, like the lime green sweater. but it's called crop, and that's how I grow good relationships. So think of a watering can, crop, C for commonality, right? So when I speak to Stephanie, we engage in conversation, right? What's the pivot to some commonality? Is it the university? So we already have commonality. Is it shared values? Is it a shared purpose? Is it a shared connection? R, reciprocity. And I know it's right, give and take, Mickey, but what's the give? Naturally, you're going to get. The get's going to come, but think about the give. O for opportunity. What's the opportunity to drive? So it's on. What's the opportunity for the next face-to-face touch? Right. What's the O? And purpose. What's the underlying nature of the relationship you want to build or nurture? So that's what. So it's a little off topic, but I don't consciously think of that, but it helps as a learning mnemonic for the recruiters that I do work with, and we do that kind of unconsciously, naturally during conversation. But if you think about it, I think it makes some sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're making swoops.
That's right.
Oh, you have a different type.
Yeah. Curveball.
On? Yes, okay. Okay, you've heard a lot about networking. You've got a good sense of that, right? I'm going to give him a crop example. All right. Community Housing Innovation is a nonprofit agency. I built it from 25 staffers to 250. Those are the hard fact numbers. $3 million to $24 million I've developed since in 12 years. Those are hard facts. Along the way, an individual came to me in 2010, and she said to me, I would like my children who have been given so much in this world to give back to others. So I had this idea called birthday wishes. And essentially what it is bringing birthday parties into homeless shelters for children who, guess what, they really don't have birthday parties. Very simple idea, very beautiful idea, an idea that the community can get behind. Since 2010, she came to me, I took the time into the interview, I gave her my time, she certainly gave me her time, 100% volunteer. And she said, Rosemary, I really only want to do one shelter in Nassau County. I have 18 locations. I said, certainly, that'd be fine. She now does every single homeless shelter on Long Island. This has happened in really 3 years. She has a cachet of approximately 100 volunteers. She also provides birthday, she calls it birthday in a box for my children. We also do permanent housing, support permanent housing. I would say that she services anywhere from 250 to 300 children a month. And she started with 5 little families in Nassau County. Now, what does that mean? Everywhere I go, I talk about birthday wishes. Yes, she has a social media, she has a website, she is growing by leaps and bounds from this one little conversation with me. Everywhere she goes, she talks about community housing innovations. What has that done for the both of us? She's at a cocktail party. She happens to be a little bit in the higher income bracket than I'll ever see. But so she'll be in that circle, and she'll talk about CHI, because someone will say, oh, I heard that you do something with these birthday parties. Well, goodwill, I don't know these people. She knows them. She connects me with them. Do you see where that blossoms? And that happens in one conversation. Meanwhile, we are servicing so many kids and doing such a nice act of giving. That's where that works. How is that networking? She sends me more people than I care to know about, who just want to help, want to do things. Their children who are interested in working with in the social work field or other types of fields. It goes on and on. That came out of one conversation. That's very simple.
We have just a few more minutes left, so I can move on to the next question if you guys are, okay, that's great. All right. Unless you have something to add.
All right,
So the next area, the next question that I have is about increasing knowledge about kind of the career, the industry that you're looking to go into. So increasing market intelligence, and for who'd like to answer, not everyone has to answer. But how do you stay current with what's going on in your field, and how has it helped you in your career?
Oh, a couple of things that I've done recently. I attend webinars. The other day I actually went to a breakfast meeting for Society of Human Resources Management. So if anything, join all of the organizations that pertain to your career. On LinkedIn, there are different organizations. You can go online, you can join them. And the good thing about it is, like, I recruit a lot for medical technologists. Am I a medical technologist? No. Do I join the group so that I can learn what they do? Of course. So you join the group, you learn about the position, you learn about what other companies are looking for to make you better in the interview process. So that's one of the things. And then again, just join all of the associations that are affiliated with the type of work that you want to do.
Yeah, I'm sure this is a very smart group, but I think you have to constantly challenge yourself beyond the degree you've received. Scholarship is, a lifelong enterprise, and the way that the world is changing today is extremely rapid. So job duties are outpacing people's skill sets more and more, and you need to stay ahead. You need to be relevant within your place of work much more than before, because it's extremely competitive. For me personally, what I've noticed in public relations and communications generally is that the digital space is driving so much. So I personally challenged myself to become expert at the digital space. So I'm actually at Edelman. I'm doing a digital residency program. This is a year-long program where you have to apply. We have twice monthly meetings. You have to produce reports. So I'm like going to school at my own company, right? So those are. And then I'm a member of several professional societies. I go to those conferences as much as I can. And I also try to go to conferences and meetups outside of my PR communications expertise, meetings with lawyers, business people, people who I work with a lot, but who are bringing a different perspective to professional thinking than my own.
Yeah, I would just add quickly, building on what you guys said, just a voracious appetite for learning. Learning, ongoing development, and constantly understanding the rapid changes Errol was alluding to in many different environments and industries. I had the fortunate pleasure of speaking at an event last year in financial services. I'm doing it again this year, and I look to meet my colleagues face to face to kind of talk about the lay of the land as far as where things are moving in our space. So again, ongoing learning, and where do you think you can see that learning out?
Great. Yeah, I think the biggest thing here is that, when we talk about networking as well, that you have things to talk about, right? So if you're current, you know what's going on. If you're not in the industry or the occupation that you'd like to be in yet, but that gives you a talking point even for when you're in information interviews or when you're networking with people. So that's another way that can be very helpful for you. So
I just wanted to jump in on that. A real quick way, easy, beyond, you don't have to, if you're a doctor, you probably subscribe to the Journal of Medicine, right? You don't have to devour really dense pieces of things. I think you can, because of the internet, you can have Google alerts along things in your industry. It's really easy to consume periodicals, online news content. Really easy to feed that stuff to an email address where something pops and it looks interesting. Like, I'm from Guyana. I left there years and years ago, but I still get a lot of Guyanese news just filtered to me. But I think news is an easy way to keep tabs on things without feeling like it's like a professorial enterprise, So, and it's just easy to do.
Great, I think that's an excellent point. And I think I'll also add to that is that creating the habit of doing that on a daily basis, I think is another thing as well. It's, every now and again is not necessarily going to cut it, but really making a habit to maybe every day look at something. So that's something that also will help too. So we just went over many different topic areas related to job search strategies, everything from materials that you use to be able to market your skills, from interviewing as well. We talked about strategies for online versus offline, networking, of course, right? And then lastly, we talked about kind of increasing your intelligence, your market intelligence, and really being knowledgeable about the field that you'd like to be in. So the last question really is just kind of any advice that the panel might have that maybe we haven't already talked about, because we have kind of gone over some things a couple of times, but additional information that you would like them reading, thinking about.
I would just build on what you said. You have to own your own experience and be consistent in your behavior to attack what you want to attack. It's out there for you. Folks are sharing a lot of information that you can leverage, take advantage of, and be proactive about. So you can decide what you want to do. You want to sit back and be complacent, or you want to be hungry and attack and engage. But I would also say, think about who are your advocates, your warm resources, people who advocate on your behalf. Pick 3 people, right, in different corners of industry, different corners of your life, who trumpet who you are, and see if you can get conversations with them, and then maybe look to see how you can build relationships with some of the relationships that they already have. So.
One thing sorry. Just don't get discouraged in your job search. It's very easy to do. I've been there, I've been laid off. It's one thing to get discouraged, but just stay positive. Keep a positive mind frame. And, even if that means taking an entry-level position to get where you want to be, sometimes you have to do that. So, just staying positive and just smile through it, really. It's one of the main things that can kind of lead you forward in your goals. So.
I'll defer.
All right. No, go
Okay. I think a couple of things. Visibility. If you look at people who really excel in their industry, there's a few things they do. They excel. They also convene a conversation about how to excel. And then they give back within their industry, and they give back outside of their industry, right? And I think when you just kind of do your job and you go home, it's isolating, and you can hit a wall, and then you don't quite know how to get around that wall. So I think having those tenets is really important. The second thing is transformation. Always thinking about transformation. You could be doing a job today, but in 10 years you could be in an entirely different industry because of leaps that you make. And being open to transformation, I think, is really, really important. And I think I always tell people that transformation by nature is disruptive and it's scary, but the only way you have change in your life is to create disruption in your life. So it's going to be uncomfortable, but then it's going to be pretty sweet.
Yes,
My final words is be yourself. Find out who you are. If you're a quiet person, that's okay. So you quietly get involved in a conversation. If you're a more outgoing person, you might be the one that takes your quiet friend along with you and dives into that conversation. Be yourself, and fear. Do not have fear. Be confident. I deal a lot with interns. I am also an adjunct professor. I deal with students. You guys know a lot of stuff. You don't know how much you know. So be confident and take the risk of bringing what you know to the table. And then the last thing I was going to say is just escape my mind. But really be yourself. Take those risks. Feel confident. It comes back. Looking at job descriptions. Believe it or not, sometimes, and I mean going to some websites, I run a nonprofit, but I deal a lot in human resources. I can't tell you how many white papers and newsletters I get from human resource because I have to keep up to date in that. I learn a lot about that. They also give you a lot of things about leadership and management. I read a lot of things on business. I mean, if you look at my job description, you might say, why are you involved in all of that? I feel like I have to be. That's coming from me. But then also look at some job descriptions and say to yourself, as you read through it, I can do this. What do you mean this is a COO position? I've done 95% of this stuff. I can be a COO. Now, just coming out of school, please don't expect to be a COO. But certainly, you can aspire to what's on that job description.
Yeah, you've heard a lot of really great, a lot of really good information here, and a lot of insight that we hope you're walking away with at least 1, 2, or 3 things that you can start to tackle within the next 72 hours, right? Really starting to implement some of these things. Before we close for this evening, for the employer panel portion, I'd like to just open it up for questions and to allow you to kind of build upon maybe something you have a question about or you want to hear more about.
I've heard and understood the emphasis on having a digital presence, but I'd like to know how important a social media presence is to finding a job in the professions, specifically teaching.
So the question is about using social media and how helpful that is in finding a job in teaching education.
On what level? On K through 12?
Higher education.
Higher education.
I would say higher education. Go ahead, no? I'm going to let the human resources.
Oh.
I would say very important.
Yes, definitely very important. I mean, if you go onto their website, you would see the kind of presence that they have. So if you're mindful of that, then you know that they're looking on social media websites as well. So I think it's very important.
Can I ask another related question? Because I made the transformation at my age to the digital world, but I'm still very unsure of it. It's probably the reason I didn't get into a PhD program at Stony Brook. But regarding job application materials, can it still be assumed that document resumes as opposed to, let's say, e-portfolios? I've seen some wonderful things by students at Stony Brook done with Digication. And when I sent a job application letter to Stony Brook, the first paragraph was, I can't do anything snazzy like Digication, but here's my resume. I mean, how common are e-portfolios nowadays when people are asking for a resume? How can
I would just say on a macro level, you've got to know your audience. So I think a lot of recruiters are very specific about what they want. Now you might, let's say someone asks you for a resume and a cover letter, right? You could send a Prezi, which is a real fancy presentation vehicle, right? But the recruiter may say you didn't follow the instructions, right? But if you're trying to get a job at, let's say, an advertising company where they really do like interesting things that are different and creative, that might be appropriate for that. So I would say be creative, but be creative in the confines of what someone is telling you their format is, because the format that they're asking for allows them to easily share that information within their organization, right? So if you go outside of their format, then they may have to find another way to share that. So that may become an encumbrance. So, but I think your point is right in that you're asking a question about, do you also need to transform as it relates to presenting yourself, and having an open mind about that, I think is an excellent point. I would just say, look to the instruction, ask the question, say, are you guys open to that? And if they say no, if they say yay, then you have license.
Thank you. But there's still something I'm a little bit unsure of. When a resume is requested, that means a document, a PDF or...
That's how I interpret it, for sure. I think, it's a Word document.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll also have times towards the second part of the event this evening to ask quick questions, so we'll be over here a little bit later on, absolutely. Other questions?
Hi, my name is Monique Grant. I recently graduated from Stony Brook University. I was a social science major. I majored in political science and history, and in school, you always get that question, so what are you going to do with that? And I feel like I have a lot of interest and a lot of experience doing various things, and I wanted to know how you kind of, how did you figure out what kind of career you wanted to get into, and how did you kind of narrow down, well not narrow down, but kind of choose a path where to go next?
I had an extensive informational interview, so I'm going to keep quiet. You want to hear from these guys.
Yeah.
She heard my spiel a couple months ago.
I actually,
And she's a phenomenal
hello.
person.
I actually, I fell into human resources. It's not something that I went to school for. I went to school for sociology. I minored in criminal justice and psychology, thinking that I would be working with, juvenile delinquents, and it didn't work out that way. And, I saw a position open up, and I decided to take a chance. So a lot of it is about taking chances. And, with a degree like yours, there's different avenues that you can go towards. So it's really what you want to do. You have to find your passion and see, what direction it takes you. When I started in HR, I started as a recruiting coordinator. With that position, it opened up so many other doors, so I decided to get my master's in it. And then next thing you know, I'm in, Sunrise Medical Labs, but then I decided to start a consulting firm. So it just depends on what direction you want to go in with your career. So, but take chances. I think that's a major thing.
Hi, Monique. Hi. So I didn't have a particular industry per se in mind, but I like to tell stories. So I've had, again, the fortunate pleasure of working in companies that allow me to tell stories. Work for the New York Daily News, Consumer Reports, Major League Baseball, now New York Life, and I help recruiters tell their stories to folks that they want to recruit at the local level. So maybe it's not so much industry focused or company focused, but maybe a little more of a higher level. What gets you going? For lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, I think like the junior year to like the first 2-3 years out of college is a really critical point, because it's like a period that requires like real self-exploration. And if you're not doing that, then it's a problem, because you have to actually put a stake in the ground and say, I am going to explore myself. I am not going to just do the mechanics of going to class every day. You have to actually look at yourself and say, what is it that is my passion? Because that's a hard question for some people. Like, I've always loved words, so I've always been pretty clear on what I wanted to do, that I wanted it to revolve around the written word, the oral word, right? And I knew that at a very young age. But there are people who are 25, 30 years old that don't know what their passion is, right? But part of that too is because the way we school people in this country, we don't actually school them around actually exploring what their passion is. In fact, people are often afraid to explore that. But at some point, you're going to have to put a stake in the ground and really explore that, right? And then when you do that, you actually have to have a point of view. And then you have to take a step. And that step might be the wrong step, and you might have to take a turn. But at some point, you're going to have to say, this is going to be that step.
Thank you.
All right, question? Yeah.
What advice do you have for a career changer?
If you turn on the mic.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So, what advice do you have for any career changers in the room? Maybe somebody who has a lot of transferable skills but no real experience in the company or industry that they're trying to transition into.
Great questions about changing careers and what kind of things you look for.
Just my opinion, just be willing to take an entry-level position to get your foot in the door. I mean, sometimes you just have to do what you have to do to really excel at what you want to do. So, unfortunately, your resume isn't going to be tailored around what, the position you're looking for if you don't have the experience, but your cover letter can speak for you. Just in the cover letter, bring about, talk about what you're capable of and, your accomplishments. And, just because you don't have the experience doesn't mean you don't have excellent work ethics. It doesn't mean that you are, incapable of doing things. Make your cover letter work for you.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Sorry. What I would also add is I would think about if there's a particular company or industry that you have in mind that has kind of more flexibility on transferable skills and not those hard skills, suss those companies out, flesh them out. And also within your own network, relationship network, is there a center of influence, somebody at that company, or somebody who can get you, face to face within that company, just for some guidance, on it. So look for those people as, within your relationship network.
The question you're asking is a really tough one because I want to be a realist as well, right? So I think when you're transferring careers, I believe in leveraging one career to another career, that there should be like connectors in how you leverage, because I think stepping from like one continent to a whole other continent and taking a pay cut with no map for how you're gonna then grow pay and grow influence can be like a recipe for disaster, right? So you have to become, if you're doing wholesale change, you have to really become expert at the place you're going into. And you have to really check yourself in terms of like, okay, am I 30, am I 40, am I 50? What's the average age range of the people at the level I'm coming in? How am I gonna distinguish myself in the first 2 to 3 years of this place? And the answer to that question may be, I don't need to make that change, right? So you have to the informational interview point, you really need to talk to people, learn as much as possible, because you may hit a brick wall and not be able to move. But there are also exciting opportunities if you see room for growth and you learn a lot about the target industry and you see a roadmap for yourself.
So we're going to have time for questions as well for the second portion of this event. And first I'd like to also just thank the panelists. You guys did an amazing job.
I just wanted to say, because I don't have a ton of time, but I'll leave my card. I'm available to anyone in here who wants to have an informational interview. I'm in PR, I know communications, I've written, produced papers. So if you have, or you want general career advice, please take my card and call me at any point.
Great. I also like to bring your attention to the handout that we gave you as you checked in today. You turn over to the back, you'll see that there's several career job search resources for you in order to increase your career market intelligence, also to kind of understand a little bit more about job boards and how to better use them, and then lastly, kind of little tools online to help you manage your search a little bit better. So definitely take advantage of these. What I will say in closing is that if you have not already taken advantage of a career consultation with our office, we do offer phone career consultations in addition to in-person consultations. So definitely take advantage of that. The website is right on your screen over here, and it's also on the handout as well, so you can see more information about that and follow the instructions on how to make an appointment. So what I'd like to do now is I'd just like to introduce or allow Janet to come up to talk a little bit about some things that's going on in the Alumni Association before we close the next part of the event.
Mickey, excuse me, can I just add one more thing that people don't think about, and please do think about it? Department of Labor. Believe it or not, your local Department of Labor's offices can be very helpful as well, especially when they see an educated, motivated individual. They will bend over backwards to help you. So don't count them out.
Thank you for that. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out and joining us tonight. We're so glad to have you here and to host you this evening. And I just want to say thank you again to our panelists. I certainly learned a lot tonight. I'm certain you did too. Thank you so much. I also really want to thank Nikki Barnett, Mariana Savoca, and the Career Center. The partnership with Alumni Relations has just been incredible, and we're so pleased to offer programming like this. So thank you, Nikki. You put together a beautiful program, and you did a great job moderating. Thank you. So I do a lot of work with the New York City Alumni Chapter, and we are growing by leaps and bounds. So I want to make sure that you all know that you have an active alumni community here in New York City. We had an event back in May. We literally were bursting at the seams at the location we were at. I see a lot of familiar faces. I know some of you were there. So stay tuned. We are planning another networking event in the fall, and we're going to set up some opportunities for you to really go ahead and network and meet people and meet alumni and share interests. So please keep an eye out for your invitation, and I encourage you to join us that night. One other thing that I wanted to tell you about tonight, Stony Brook, for the second year in a row, is going to be hosting a TEDx conference. It's coming up in November, and there's a critical piece now that we're calling out to alumni for. We really need alumni to nominate speakers. So if you know a fantastic alumni peer who has a great presentation to share among a TEDx community, so this is an all-day event that's hosted on campus at Stony Brook University, but it's webcast, and we reached over 40,000 people last year at our first TEDx conference. So please go on the Alumni Association website, nominate your peers, let us know, call the office if you're thinking about something that you have to offer, let us know. Please, we want to see TEDx populated with as many Stony Brook alumni as we possibly can. So thank you all so much. I invite you to come up and participate in the resume review, and I also invite you to join us outside. We have a beautiful reception set up for you. So come enjoy some food, some drinks, network, and have a great time. Have a good evening.
I just want to wave the Stony Brook flag because I'm on the alumni board. And there are, I think, different generations of Stony Brook here. But I just want to say the Stony Brook of my era is not the Stony Brook of today. And there's a really strong alumni presence, and you should be part of it because Stony Brook today is super exciting. I mean, the transformation of the university has been great, and I think, you know, when I graduated, there wasn't really this sense that, okay, we're stepping into an alumni group from, you know, the Harvards or the Yales of the world, but actually Stony Brook is very much on that stage today, and I think you should all take advantage of that as alums.